What is going on, everybody? Combo here, and as you read by the title, today we have 5 quick flatline tips to make you an absolute flatline god. Now, this video is probably going to be a little controversial. I'm going to be showing you a way to use the flatline you probably would think at first is pretty stupid, but I promise if you adhere to me, listen to me just a little bit, you may reconsider the way you use this thing and how strong it is. So, not going to talk too much. Let's get right into the video. Starting out with number 1, we have the most important tip of this video: what fire mode you should be using the flatline on at what times. Now, I wholeheartedly believe, and I know this, unless you are literally right in someone's face like this, you should be using semi-auto on this thing at all times. The reason I say this is because the flatline, believe it or not, actually has pretty decent range. When using things like full auto from here, yes, you can hit some shots. This thing has insane recoil and it has no barrel compensation. With single fire, as you can see, you can hit shots from this range and even further, fairly consistent if you learn to pace your shots and take the time to learn it. So right here, as I said, you can use full auto, yes, and you can have success. But using semi-auto is just so much freaking better with this thing. Right here, I'm going to finish that guy off. As you can see right here, it turns the gun into a complete monster. And yes, this isn't for everybody, as you do, especially on console. If you're not as quick on the trigger, full auto is going to be better. If you really do take the time to learn this thing and use it on single fire, it is a completely different weapon. Moving on to number 2, we're going to talk about the hip fire on this thing. As I always say, it plays a very big role in every single gun in this game, and you should know how to use the hip fire in 1-2. If you notice, the hip fire reticle on this thing is nowhere near as big. It is actually 2 triangles to the left and right instead of a crosshair like most are. This is important as this means the bullet spray pattern is going to be within these 2 triangles at all times, and yes, when you shoot, it does grow out more and more. What this does is it allows you to shoot much more consistently at close range. So if I'm strafing left to right, you'll notice I rarely miss a shot. Even from this range right here, if I'm strafing, you'll see, still going to kill the target pretty easily. If I'm using a single fire, you'll notice it's even more consistent. So really, your optimal hit fire range is about from, I'd like to say 5 meters. The target, if you're this close to his target, you should always be hip firing as you're more mobile. Yes, I can aim down the sights and go for headshots, but when you're fighting a moving target, it's probably not going to work out as well. Next up, let's talk about the optimal range of the flatline, as it was very briefly touched upon in the first tip, but I thought I'd go further in depth about it on this one. So, as I said, with full auto, your optimal range is going to be much shorter. If we try to kill this target from here, full auto, even like kind of spacing out our shots, it's just not going to work out too well. If we put this thing on single fire mode, however, and we pace our shots just a little bit more, you'll notice we become much more consistent. Even at medium to far ranges, where you would normally be using something like a hemlock, this thing can still hang, as you can see right there. Further ranges, even approaching scout territory, if you really pace your shots quite slowly, you can even be consistent from this range. Something good to note about heavy ammo is the bullets have very little drop and they flinch the target more, meaning at longer ranges you can contend with things like the scout as long as you're pacing your shots and hitting the target fairly consistently. Tip number 4 has to deal with those players who may or may not struggle with using the single fire mode on the hemlock. If you feel like you're shooting it too slow and you're missing out on too much damage, this tip is for you. Because of the way the hip fire and the aim down sights recoil works on the flatline, the best way to control the recoil is to just slightly, and I mean very slightly, tilt the trigger on the aim stick down, like this. It's going to make it look like you're going to the floor, but when you shoot this thing, it's actually going to level it out perfectly and make it a laser beam. So, as I show right here, if I don't hold down at all, you'll notice the hemlock does not have much vertical recoil, it's mostly side to side. But if I do, just slightly hold down on the trigger, as you can see right there, it completely levels the weapon out and makes it much more consistent. So right here, boom, as we said, you're going to have a little bit of side-to-side recoil, but if you're just slightly holding down, you're not going to have to worry about that up and down at all. And finally, last but not least, we have what sight you should be using on your flatline. And to me, this one is super easy. Without a doubt, you should be using the 2x bruiser. The reason I say this is you should really never be switching off the 2x sight with this thing. As I said, it has much more range than you would normally anticipate or you'd normally be using it, as long as you're using the single fire mode. If you are only using the automatic mode, I can understand using a 1x or maybe a 1-2, but for me, sticking to the 2x at all times is always better. As one, it makes going for headshots with this thing much easier, which is where single fire really shines. You can see right here, if I want to hit headshots, I can hit headshots almost every time. So let's go right here. And the 2 times just makes that much easier, as well as challenging people at longer ranges. As we showed off earlier, this thing is very capable of that, and the 2 times really helps. I could see an argument for the 2 to 4, as I said, but I don't really think you should be using it 4 times. 3 times not at all, because that feels like just a little bit too much. And as I said, the 1 and 2, if you're not using it on semi-auto, I can completely understand why. Well, everyone, I think that just about wraps up the video for now. I hope you all really did come and enjoy this. If you did, great. If not, of course, leave a dislike so I can improve for my next one. I apologize for those of you who were promised a Havoc video. That is on its way. I just had to do a little bit more testing, as some of my tips I thought weren't very good, and I had to go back and I'm redoing it now. So that is still on the way, but I thought I'd give you this flatline guide, as I've been using the flatline quite a bit lately, and it's been treating me really, really well. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed. Stay tuned for a potential stream either tonight or tomorrow, depending on when this video goes live. And yeah, I hope everybody did enjoy. This has been Combo. Stay home, stay safe, and peace out, everyone.